Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options in Play video update. So, hope everybody's having a great week. While the overall averages maybe not doing a whole lot, starting to get some pretty big moves in some names that maybe have been out of play for a little bit, right? So, had a lot of the bigger tech names for the most part last week, but now you're starting to get some more under the radar. Still volatile tech names, but a little bit more under the radar. Maybe not as much attention as say the Facebooks, the Netflix, the Amazons, but with the gaming stocks today, in particular, a group that really flying around. Um, what I want to talk about today is Disney. So this is one I'm sure you guys remember. We were in this one for a long time. Wrote it for several months last year, and really only abandoned the idea back in December. Basically, when it finally broke back below the 100-day, and really couldn't get through it, there was that point where even though the contracts went out through June of this year, they were really longer dated contracts. Just felt the market was deteriorating. Disney lost key level, and even though there was a ton of time left on the position, that it just didn't really make sense to hold. So that was the point where it was closed out, and since then haven't really revisited the idea. Right. So I felt that it's a good time to kind of like talk through the logic, or talk through like the setup now, and maybe like the logic why we would revisit a trade soon. And first off, earnings last night obviously were catalyst, but in terms of catalyst over the next 2 to 3 months, probably not as important, right? And what I mean by that is, yes, there were earnings, and those can lead to some bigger moves in Disney. But what's coming up at the beginning of April, April 11th specifically, is their Investor Day, where they plan to lay out their service, their streaming service plans, and give a look at the actual service, Disney Plus. So, with most of the people involved in Disney right now, focused or concerned about that streaming service, you can get the impression that earnings were mostly an event where they can maybe get some color on what's actually going to happen on April 11th. So, without maybe too many details, Disney's move today here, you can see it was a little bit more of a non-event. It still moved. So going into the results, it was priced in about $3, and top to bottom, you got about $3. But in terms of sustained move, maybe not so much to actually pay the straddle going into this. There's still reasons to be optimistic here, and overall, like I'm still net positive on Disney, and part of the reason why is that it's still holding pretty nicely above 110, which 110, 112. Like, this is like a longer term area of interest on Disney. And let's see if I go back even further, you can see why it's important. So you can see that it's been a pretty big area. So, it did succumb to the overall market weakness back in December, right? But then it snapped right back, and it's been basically flatlining above it for the last like 3-ish weeks or so. Earnings today, if they, if the stock had popped and started to break out, maybe that wouldn't have surprised me. But the fact that it, failed breakout still is not like a reason to abandon the idea, because this is not the event that most people are focused on. It's going to be that April 11th Investor Day. So, right now, what you have is the stock that's pulling back into the consolidation, still holding above support. And what's nice is that the options, right? I'll show you. So the options have had a little bit of an implied volatility crush, right? Because you have the earnings event out of the way, and let's see. So stock isn't doing a whole lot. It's off more marginally today, but you can see that the options that go out through April have lost maybe about 25% of their value. See, so and actually you can see it right here. So trading a little bit under the historical implied volatility, which For an event coming up that basically everybody that's in the stock is going to be focused on, it's kind of creates like an interesting scenario, right? So what I'm thinking, and maybe what I'll eventually like write up for a trade is maybe let it settle a couple more days, or maybe like another week of choppy action in Disney uh, in this 110 area. Maybe you can send. Let me go back. So another few days chopping around in this 110 to 112 area, and maybe you continue to see like those options, the implied volatility crunch a little bit more, right? But overall, I mean, I think like the trade still stands, right? Like if this thing can make a move out of this base and start to work up into like the 115, 116, 117 area ahead of this investor streaming day, then I mean, overall, from a longer term perspective, this could really be an explosive setup because I feel like the most potential, right, comes when it eventually and ultimately breaks 120 because I mean this goes back until 2015 where it's just been like a serious overhead area of resistance. And I mean really for the most part if you draw like the wedge, right, you can see that it's just forming like this really increasingly tight pendant here, and eventually it's going to resolve. My bias is more to the upside. I think that there's a lot of nice tailwinds, and if people start to buy into like this streaming service and how it's really going to be a big deal, then it could finally lead to that pent up breakthrough 120 and a measured move after 3-4 year consolidation should be a pretty nice target on the upside. So that's what I'm watching. So probably won't do anything with it immediately, but waiting maybe like the next week, 2 weeks, see if it chops around, see if those options come down a bit, and then maybe look for April, possibly even revisit maybe a little bit longer, because like after April, the next month is available is June, which was the contracts we were originally in. Uh, but either April, maybe they'll open up May, and we can target May. But that's the plan. That's what I'm looking at. I have this on my radar. I have it on really close on my radar. It's an idea I like. Got out of it at the end of last year, but haven't abandoned the idea in general, and I'm focused on it, and I'm just waiting for the opportunity. So keep an eye out for that trade idea coming up in the near future. All right. So I'd love to hear what you guys think. What are your opinions on Disney? And it's one of those stocks, and it's not tech, but everybody has an opinion. So let me know what you think. I hope you guys have a fantastic night. Best of luck if you're trading anything. If you have any other questions, even outside of Disney or anything that I spoke of at the coaching session this week, please reach out because I'd love to hear from you. So again, have a great night, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.